Show of hands. How many of you have ever been told that your dreams are too ambitious? Your dreams are too big. Your dreams are too difficult. Now keep your hands raised if you believed in them anyway. That's more like it. Now what if I told you that the secret to achieving your impossible dreams, it isn't what most people think. It isn't talent. It isn't luck. It isn't even hard work. The secret is a mindset that the world's top minds have perfected over decades. Now picture this, a tiny 400 square foot home in India where a little girl sitting on the floor, glued to the TV screen, watching astronauts floating in space and dreaming about space. That little girl was me. But today, I don't just dream about space. I actually build spacecraft for NASA. But before you jump to conclusions, this story isn't about rockets and stars. It's actually about something far more powerful. It's about a revolutionary approach to breaking barriers that I call the pioneer mindset. You know, for the last decade, I've had this tremendous opportunity to work on several space missions alongside the greatest pioneers of our times at NASA and MIT, working on 4 space missions, discovering new planets, building the largest Earth-observing satellite, operating a rover on Mars, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. But what I discovered was so fascinating. These breakthrough pioneers don't just think differently. They view every challenge as a problem to be solved. They don't just take established paths, they forge new ones. And they don't just dream big, they act with unwavering conviction. And in doing so, I asked myself, how can I become like them? I have to take you back to my childhood. As a kid, you might be familiar with this. I used to do this thing where I would go out, look at the night sky, and just whisper my dreams to the stars. I would say, one day I will explore this universe. But what began there to now has been a long journey with countless rejections, visa barriers, sometimes seemingly insurmountable odds as a foreign national, to then being the only girl in classrooms and boardrooms and conference rooms. But what I learned through this journey and what I'm here to share with you all today is that the pioneer mindset breaks down into 3 simple steps, and you can train your mind to learn. And no, this is not just for rocket scientists. It's actually for anyone who wants to turn their biggest dreams into reality. Whether you're trying to launch a spacecraft or launch a business, whether you're exploring Mars or exploring a career change, whether you're trying to scale a mountain or whether you're trying to set a new health goal, this framework is for you. Now you might ask, what are the 3 steps? Okay, so step 1 is dream big. When I say dream big, I don't mean just setting ambitious goals. I mean fundamentally redefining what you believe is possible. And you know, when I say dream big, you might say, well, I have big dreams, but I don't know what to do with them. Or you might say, well, I have this mindset that stops me from following those big dreams. But I'll tell you what we do in NASA. When NASA's test mission was getting planned, our team at MIT proposed an audacious goal. We said we're going to answer this underlying existential question of humanity, which was, are we really alone in this universe? Or is there an Earth-like planet somewhere far, far away where there might be life in some form? We started there, and people said this was a very ambitious goal. We set out to observe 200,000 stars, discovering new planets, trying to figure out if there are planets that can harbor life as we know it. And even though there were questions, we followed our gut. We had to build a spacecraft that was extremely stable, be able to observe huge sections of the sky. But we still persevered. We built the satellite. Our team built a camera system that could observe huge sections of the sky, 600 times larger than previous missions. And since its launch in 2016, TESS has discovered over 5,000 planet candidates with at least some that could potentially harbor life as we know it. Each of these discoveries was possible because someone, somewhere, dared to ask, what if? Let me give you one more example. Now, we've heard of these large telescopes that can make these kinds of discoveries. But what if we build a tiny satellite, a tiny telescope the size of a shoebox? Can that become a planet-hunting satellite? This is the question we set out to answer at MIT. We said, we're going to build a planet-hunting satellite the size of a shoebox. But until then, we only knew of these large school bus-sized satellites with this kind of capability. Now, people laughed. To be fair, I agree with them. You know why? Because I find it so hard to take out my shoes from the shoebox and then fit them right back in, unless it's perfectly aligned. But now we're saying we're going to take this huge school bus and put that into a shoebox? Well, that sounds ridiculous, right? But you'll be surprised. A few years fast forward, Asteria launched. We've now set the record of becoming the smallest satellite to ever detect a planet outside our solar system. Now, how is this possible? You might ask, so what blocks us from our dreams then? Let's be honest with ourselves. How many of you have had a voice inside your head say, well, this is too ambitious. It's too hard. It's not for me. Maybe for someone else. What if I fail? What will my friends and family think? You know, oftentimes the biggest barrier to our dreams is not the world around us. It's that voice in our head telling us it's impossible. So let me ask you to do this small exercise with me. Just close your eyes for a moment and think. Think about your biggest dream. Really think about it. Now hold your thought right there and think again. What is that one dream you will attempt if you couldn't fail? Let's say there was 0 chance of failure, 100% success. Do you see a different dream for yourself? Now open your eyes. That right there, that second dream, where you detached yourself, you distanced yourself from the outcome and thought about dreaming. That's when you're able to dream big. So dreaming big means dreaming without the fear of outcomes. Now you might say, I have big dreams. Now what? So step 2, let me tell you, this is a very important step. You have to learn how to act bold. And when I say act bold, I just don't mean taking action without intent. Now we all have big dreams, but this is where we get stuck. We wait for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, the perfect plan. Or even worse, we wait for permission from someone else to start. Let me break this to you. That perfect moment, it doesn't exist. Let me give you an example from my own journey, something really personal to me. Back in 2010, when I first started applying to graduate programs in the US, I announced to people closest to me that I was applying to MIT Aerospace. At this time, I was a wide-eyed international student in a lesser-known Indian college studying mechanical engineering. I had good grades and a decent research experience, but not something that could get into MIT. But I said, let me try. Because if I don't try, I will never figure out. What do you think happened? Did I make it? Nope, rejected. 2 years fast forward. I finished my master's in aerospace engineering from the University of Illinois. I said, I now have all of the checklists done, a solid profile. This can get me back into MIT, so I applied second time to the PhD program in aerospace. And this time, I still didn't make it. But I was waitlisted. Well, at least it was progress in my mind, not rejected, right? The letter was a mix of hope and hesitation. It said, professors are interested in working with you, but there are not enough spots or funding. In that moment, instead of retreating, I took the boldest step. I did something that terrified me. I started writing. I started writing emails to professors in every department that was relevant to aerospace. That included mechanical, material science, you name it, planetary science. 1 email, 2 emails, 3 emails, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100, and deafening silence. There was no response. And finally, when I was just about to lose hope, I heard back from a professor who said, look, there is a 1-year project. No guarantees. It's not a PhD program, but you can come here and build a small satellite with the team. Now, what would you do? You had, on the one hand, a safe path, a fully funded Cornell admit that would get you straight to your PhD. On the other, a 1-year contract, a temporary job that might or might not lead you somewhere. And being an international student meant I was on a visa and had things to take care of. I cannot just go off on a 1-year contract, right? But here's where it gets interesting. I think I like to live dangerously. So I picked the space mission and MIT, and yes, Boston winters. You know how that went. So from there started my journey. 1 year later, I worked really hard. This time, no stones unturned. I didn't just reapply the 3rd time to the PhD program. I also applied to my own research grants, to different fellowships. By now, I think the admissions officers knew me half by name, so I was expecting them to send me a rejection letter saying, please stop trying, we're tired. But no, that's not what happened. This time, I made it with a full fellowship to do my PhD at MIT. And not just that. Over the next 5 years, I got to work on 2 NASA-funded space missions as part of my PhD, and I saw both of them launch. And that's extremely rare. Now imagine this for a second, right? You're standing at the steps of the Kennedy Space Center. You see this huge rocket. You've only seen them on TV before. The spacecraft you worked on for years and years is sitting on top of that rocket, ready to get launched. The countdown begins. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Can you feel it? In that moment, my impossible dream was turning into reality. In that moment, I thought about every little bold action I'd taken that had pushed me closer to those dreams. Knowing this, pause for a moment and think about what is that one bold step you can take today that's going to be something that can change your life, even if you're not ready, even if the path's uncertain. Don't push it away because you think you're not ready. Now you might ask me, okay, I have an amazing dream and now I'm taking my action. So will I get to my dream? Not yet. You still have a 3rd step. The 3rd step is be relentless. When I say be relentless, it's not about never failing. It's about what you do with your failures. Now, show of hands, how many of you have ever failed at something important in your life? Okay, so keep your hands raised if you failed, but you didn't give up. You tried 2nd time, 3rd time. Well, right there, that is being relentless, right? Let me give you a space example. At NASA, when we operate a rover on Mars, and yes, that's part of my job, what we really do is we do months of testing before we ever get there. And we do these tests on Earth-based simulators. We try every scenario, every fault that can occur. We're prepared. And do you think we get this right the very first time? Not at all. The 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd. We do hundreds of tests. And every failure is a learning opportunity. We use that. We understand where we went wrong. We understand how to implement solutions. Because that's the only way that we can turn every setback into a setup for success. Now you might think, what did I learn from all of this? How did I apply it in my own life? Remember, I was doing my PhD and I had finished with 2 NASA-funded space missions in my kitty, and I was like, well, this is my moment. Finally, I can apply to jobs in the space industry and it's going to be easy. But no. Can you guess how many rejections I had to face before I could get a job? Over 100. You know, for foreign nationals, getting a job in the space industry, it's extremely limited options, if not almost non-existent. But in my mind, limited was not impossible, so I had to try. So I kept trying. With every rejection, I learned something new about the system, about myself, about what needed to change in my approach. I kept trying and applying and applying. I talked to people, and finally landed my current job at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Remember that little girl in the beginning who was looking up at the stars and wondering if I can go to space, if I can work on space missions, dreaming about operating a rover on Mars? Well, that girl, she didn't have connections, she didn't have resources. She didn't even have a role model, but what she had was far more powerful. She had that relentlessness. She had the perseverance, and she had that mindset, the pioneer mindset that helped her turn mission impossible into mission accomplished. So today, as I walk through the halls of NASA, building, launching, and operating spacecraft, I'm the same girl who dares to dream. The only difference is now I know the secret. The secret, which is the universe doesn't bend to talent, luck, or privilege, but it bends to those who dare to pioneer, to those who dare to dream big without the fear of outcome, to those who act bold even when they're not ready, and to those who are relentless in the face of failure. So let me ask you one final question. What is your impossible dream? Because with the pioneer mindset, impossible is just the beginning. So dream big, act bold, be relentless, because the universe is rooting for you, and so am I.